Thank you, Blake. Can we thank Blake, everybody? I want to talk about Jesus' betrayal. If you are new or visiting or watching online, my name is Matt and I get the joy of being the priest in this beautiful community called Unlimited. And we, as Peter said, we are this multi-generational family on a mission. We're on a mission to do everything possible to make this space, this family, this environment a space where we can welcome in some of our younger generations. We are driven by two stats at Unlimited. The first is 86% of people in the church join before the age of 25. And the second is that 3% of all people that are 16 to 24 are in church right now. If that number drops to by 0.3 to 2.7, they'll technically be an unreached people group. And quite frankly, that is not on our watch. We want to be the people in the city who are going all out as a community, as a family, as a multi-generational family to see the youngest of our guys flourishing and come alive and say, these guys, this is their home. This is their family. If they make noise, if they cause havoc, joy to us, right? Like what a joy it is. What's worse than having kids in church? Having no kids in church. We want them to be themselves, and we want this to be a space where everyone can feel comfortable and say, like kids will not be shut up in this space, and they'll be welcomed and loved and cared for. Secondly, we want to see miracles everywhere. We're the people in the middle of the city where people come in and they say, this is happening, can you pray? Hey, I don't really believe, we had a text yesterday, I don't really believe in your God, but can you pray for? I find it fascinating that people are waiting for prayer. And so, please, let's pray. Let's see miracles. Let's see God moving. We want to be the people in the city who love Jesus and become like him. And part of that means that we get to do the things that he did. And so that is who we are, this beautiful family on a mission. And I want to talk about betrayal today. And when we talk about betrayal, I want to be sensitive about it. There will be very real things I know happening in your lives at the moment where betrayal is still raw, where betrayal feels so personal. And I want to be gentle there. I want to be sensitive there. I want to acknowledge the real pain of it. And there'll be some of us lucky enough not to have been betrayed personally, but have witnessed the betrayal of friends marriages, of friends' family, of friends' companies, of friends that are hurting because of betrayal. And then there are other kind of betrayals that we see and we read about. There's corporate betrayal. Anyone know Adam Newman? Adam Newman, the guy on the left, he started WeWork. WeWork is this space that you can go and you take a laptop and a book and you can go and work anywhere in the world. At its peak, it was worth $47 billion. You know what happened? They spent money on private jets. They did some shady deals with property. They mismanaged funds and it was collapsing. The pandemic came and it collapsed. And the employees lost their jobs, couldn't pay the mortgage, couldn't put food on the table for their kids. Yet Adam, he got a payment of $1.7 billion. Like this betrayal. Anyone recognize the guy on the next? Sam Bankman-Fried. He started FTX, which is a cryptocurrency bank. If you're not invested in crypto, this is not a plug. But he started this bank, FTX, and basically they had about $32 billion worth of investment. What did he do? He got greedy. He reinvested his investment that people were investing into his coin. Obviously, he lost his investment. People tried to pull out the money, the funds that they had in their coin, and there was nothing there as he went on the run. And I think they found him in like Guatemala or Mexico or something. They found him, like he's now in prison in the States of the collapse. Invested investors' money, betrayed them. Think about political betrayal. I haven't got a slide because that would be political. Think about political betrayal. You can think of endless politicians that say, we're going to deliver this. 4 years down the line, what they delivered? Nothing. Or, their party doesn't get elected, so they jump parties. The next election, we're going to see that a lot. Particularly one party that I won't name, they're going to jump to another party because there's a favourite, and they'll jump from one to another. And talk about sports betrayals. Look at Lionel Messi. You're leaving Barcelona. If you're a Barca fan, that would be painful. Or, I don't know if you remember when Ronaldo left Man United. He left Man United, an absolute hero, left, came back and started speaking badly about the sponsors and the team and the facilities, and said, I'm not performing because this team is rubbish now. It was good when I was here before, but now, and the fans turned on him, didn't they? Because they felt like it was this sports betrayal. We talk about technical betrayals. Whenever I get a questionnaire, like on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, and says like, fill in this survey, my mind immediately goes to Cambridge Analytica. Anyone with me here? Where people go back, and do you remember Cambridge Analytica? They sold people's data to this big technical firm that abused it. Or TikTok are facing very real allegations of misusing and violating trust of their users. I've done some dumb things in my life, but betraying people has been the worst. I remember there was one time where a friend of me confided that she had ended a relationship with one twin because she liked the other twin. And a few years later, drama. A few years later, I was having a drink, and I thought it'd be funny to say, do you remember that other twin that you liked? And the look on her face, the betrayal, I will never forget. I've never betrayed someone in that way since, and that was 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago now. The good news is that she's now married to the other twin, but that, I wouldn't say I had anything to do with that, but, good things happen from bad situations. But I will still remember the look on her face. I can remember her eyes as she looked at me, as she felt I had betrayed her. Something I find incredible about Jesus is his ability to be betrayed. His ability to be able to deal with betrayal. Imagine doing life so closely with a guy that you know is going to betray you, that you know is going to sell you out, that's not going to sort of gently write to the press about you, but is going to sell you out to be crucified for a few handfuls of silver. Imagine allowing yourself to be in that vulnerable place. The Passion Translation puts it this way. While they were eating, Jesus spoke up and said, one of you is going to betray me. Feeling deeply hurt by these words, one after another asked him, you don't mean me, do you? And he answered, it is the one who has shared meals with me as an intimate friend. As an intimate friend. Then finally, Judas the traitor spoke up and asked him, teacher, perhaps it is I. To which Jesus says, you said it. You said it. You said it. It's interesting, isn't it? Eugene Peterson puts this verse this way. He says to Judas, Jesus says to Judas, don't play games with me, Judas. It's fascinating. It's fascinating that Jesus allows himself to be betrayed. Let's focus on these two verses. While they were eating, Jesus spoke up and said, one of you is going to betray me. It is the one who shares meals with me as an intimate friend. Just ponder this moment. Ponder this moment. So for Jesus, this was shock. If you were down the pub or at your friend's house or having a Sunday roast or in the curry house or you were having food around the table and you said to your friends, one of you is going to betray me, would every one of your friends look to one of your other friends? Is there a moment where everyone would be like, I knew he was a wrong one. I knew she would be the one. Is there a friend in your life that everyone would look around and be like, it's gonna be them? For Jesus, this is not the case. For Jesus, this is a shocking moment. This is a revelation that none of them are prepared for. It's interesting. Well, what it said is one of the commentators says the words would have seemed intentionally vague as to rouse some of those who heard them to self-question. Just ponder that a moment. These are intentionally vague statements that they're asking the question, is it me, Jesus? Is it me, Jesus? This would have been a shocking moment for the disciples that no one would have seen coming. It would have been like the Will Smith slap at the Oscars. It would have been like the Brexit vote in 2016, a moment that nobody saw coming. It would have been like the corporate layoffs. Yet Jesus knew. Jesus saw it coming. Jesus knew he was going to be betrayed, and he didn't treat people like you and I. He didn't gossip about the man Judas. No one was surprised. Think about that for a moment. They're doing life intimately. Jesus knows, and nobody else does. Jesus, knowing he was going to be betrayed, doesn't speak badly about Jesus. There is genuine theological shock. How beautiful is this? That Jesus, the man who is God, the God who is man, God in the most visible form, doesn't fight like you or I. Doesn't speak badly about people who pose a threat to him. Doesn't speak differently about those who are going to betray him, even in the most horrendous way. Jesus does not give the game away. He allows Judas into the inner circle, to be loved, to be treated just as the rest of them are. And they're saying, Jesus, is it me? He answers in this way. While they were eating, Jesus spoke up. One of you is going to betray me. And they asked the question, is it going to be me? Who's it going to be? The one who shared meals with me like an intimate friend. Now the betrayer had arranged with them, the one whom I kiss, arrest him. Going once to Jesus, Judas said to him, greetings, Rabbi, and he kissed him. Just ponder this. Jesus shares a meal with his betrayer, not just day in, but moment by moment. He's allowing himself to be betrayed with the closeness, with the intimacy of a kiss on the cheek. Jesus again is showing his relational quality, the relational nature of God. God, who to the world around us is described as hateful or immoral, yet to his friends he is so deeply loyal that his love runs so deep that he doesn't betray his betrayer, yet he allows his betrayer to give him up, to sell him out in the most intimate way. And so while his betrayer leans in, kisses him on both cheeks, Jesus allows Judas close, so close. I love this image. The one who shares a meal, who dips into the same bowl as me. Just ponder this, the disciples sitting at those beautiful long tables, sat around food. He doesn't treat people how we would treat people. Yeah, like if you knew you were going to be betrayed and you knew someone was going to sell you out, perhaps you would allow them at the table, but you would seat them at an arm's length, or you'd push them to the end of the table. Or perhaps you'd seat them where you sat your great aunt on your seating plan at your wedding, like out of the way enough that you don't have to interact with them, but still present. Yet Jesus doesn't do this. Jesus doesn't do this. Jesus allows him to be so close that he can dip from the same bowl. Seated to his right or to his left or right in front. Think about it, they're sitting, dipping from the same bowl. Dipping from the same bowl. Jesus eats in the closest company with those who hurt him most. Not in a distant way, but as an intimate friend would eat with each other. He betrays him by leaning in and kissing him on both cheeks. Jesus allows Judas this close. He's showing his heart for humanity. His heart that we broken humans who hurt him most may sit and eat intimately, closely with him. Tim Keller, he said, I haven't got a thing for it. Tim Keller said, we are more sinful and flawed in ourselves than we ever dared believe. Yet at the very same time, we are more loved and accepted in Jesus than we ever dared hope. This is such a beautiful sight. We are more sinful and flawed in ourselves than we ever dared hope. Yet at the same time, more loved and accepted in Jesus than we ever dared hope. We all, like Judas, betrayed Jesus. And Jesus allows us to see his heart for us and a heart for Judas. Jesus is showing us again the heart of the Father and the action of God to draw close in proximity with those who hurt him most. A God who doesn't despise or dispose of those who betray him, but brings them in closer. Allows them close enough to sit and eat as an intimate friend would, dipped from the same pot of sauce, dipped from the same bowl, to sit close by Jesus. It's interesting, St. Paul says, God made him who had no sin be sin for us, that we might become the righteousness of God. Eugene Peterson puts it this way: in Christ, God put the wrong on him who never did any wrong, so we could be put right with God. This is what Jesus is doing. He's inviting us in, us who hurt him, us who need forgiveness, us who betray him, and he's allowing us to do life in the closest proximity. Jesus' plan was always to eat with the one who would betray him. This has never been his desire, but it was his plan. He always knew that he'd have to reconcile us with God. And we, like Jesus, face betrayal, don't we? Sometimes in the small ways, other times in the huge ways. Sometimes in ways that we can just recover real easy, and other times in ways that destroys our self-worth and confidence. And we, like Jesus, we cry out in these moments, my God, where are you? Where are you? It's our role as Christians not to be a doormat. Notice that Jesus, he isn't crucified 1,000 times. He's crucified once for the forgiveness of sins. But we're called to forgive. Forgive in the face of those who betray us, who are in the closest proximity to us. And to not put ourselves back there to be hurt again, but to allow ourselves to keep loving. This is who Jesus is. This is what he does. This is the heart of God that we have to model to the world around us. And then we have to remember the effectiveness of Jesus' forgiveness. You know, it's so easy to think that Jesus doesn't understand the world, that God doesn't understand who we are, who he can't understand the context upon whom we are ministering to and with and in. Or take the view, like many in this city, that God's putting unnecessary laws in place that we ethically object to. But then we can zoom out and we can see his heart for people like you and I. That we can hear him say, this is my body which is broken for you. This is my blood shed as a new covenant for you. This is my body unbroken, given and shed for you for the forgiveness of sins. Eat and drink in remembrance of me. And hear his words as he ushers us into this embrace. And he says over us again, you are my sons and my daughters whom I love. And then we realize the purpose of our existence, to give everything for a God who gave everything for us, to love him without limit, because he gave himself up without limit for us, to be a people who thank him that while we were far off, while we were still in the distant country, while we were betraying him, he welcomed us home to intimately eat with him. And so, my conclusion, Jesus dies with our betrayal. He dies with our betrayal. On the cross, he takes our death and he dies with it. And he enters the tomb, enters into the ground, enters into hell with our betrayal on his back, and dies with it, and then is raised on the third day out of the ground, leaving our betrayal behind, that we may live in the newness of life. The joy of knowing that Jesus draws us close, so close that we can betray him with a kiss. That we can sit and eat and dip at the bowl knowing that all is well and all is good and all has been fulfilled because Jesus took our betrayal, our soul's disease, our sin and our sorrow, and dealt with it once and for all. And so this Easter, can I invite you to be reminded again of that beautiful meal that we had, where Jesus says, "This is my body which is broken and given for you." The intimacy and the proximity that he draws us into, and the joy of the resurrection life. Life walking free from guilt and shame and death and darkness and disease and betrayal, where we get the intimacy of God alive and at work. And so can we pray? Would you stand if you're able, and we're gonna pray together.